Thank you, Sally. Not the council, right? You want the council to? Yeah, okay. Perfect, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the show cause hearing for Wednesday, June 29th, 2022, 7 PM. I'll call the meeting to order at 7:02. We have one item on the agenda this evening. It is a show cause hearing regarding the potential motorized bicycle, tricycle and scooter license suspension of the license of Finnemore and Fisher Incorporated, doing business as Island Moped for the alleged violation of New Shoreham General Ordinances, Section 8-82 tags. With that opening, I will introduce myself as Andre Boudreau, first warden.
Sven Reesum, second warden.
Mark Emanuel, counsel.
Martha Ball, counsel.
Keith Stover, town council.
And that being done, I will turn the proceedings over to our attorneys.
Good evening, members of the council. First witness I'll call this evening, show cause hearing, is Officer Joel Scotia. Preferences where you'd like to witness?
I do not. I'm just wondering if that microphone is adequately loud enough.
Okay, that's fine by me. Everybody can hear this, what I'm interested in. That role on that, put the vehicle out. Looks are approximate, yeah, on that. Dispatch. Yes, I was, notified. Specific. Chief Warren had informed me that there was moped in the area of High Street. What is the significance of that? Each band is about 34 mopeds. With signal behind white number. What, if anything, the rental company themselves, the 100, 500 series. So, it's, it's different. Vendor rented out. That's correct. I checked the area.
Whether or not that particular moped had the black tag on it.
At the time, I could only see the front of the moped and the side, which would be the driver's.
And with those areas of the moped in view, were you able to observe whether or not there was a black moped identification tag on that particular moped?
Yes,
Okay, and was there one or no?
there was only one tag on the front of the moped. It was a square placard with white background and the black number 2.
Okay, and you testified earlier that the tag that is of significance is a black tag, correct?
Black oval tag, that's correct.
And that's what you testified the vendors put on each of their mopeds that is authorized to be rented, correct?
Yes, sir.
And again, this moped in question, this pink moped that you observed being operated on a public way, if you will, did it have one of those black identification tags that you could see?
Following the traffic stop, during the interim of that stop, I again checked the vehicle. I checked all 4 sides, all 4 major surfaces, and was unable to acquire that tag.
Okay. And just for the record, officer, prior to the traffic stop, were you able to observe whether or not that moped had a black tag on it?
Right, I was and did not see one.
Okay. All right. And this vehicle stop, where did that occur?
Right on High Street, just south of the school.
And how is it that you conducted the vehicle stop? Lights, sirens, both?
I just activated my lights and the operator pulled the stop.
Approximately how long after your dispatch from the chief officer did this vehicle stop occur?
1 to 3 minutes.
And your reasoning for the stop, is it fair to say that it was the absence of that black tag?
It was the information provided by the chief.
I'm going to object on the record, counsel.
I'll withdraw my question. I'll rephrase my question. Officer, what was the reason for the stop?
The chief indicated and explained to me that those vehicles must have the placard issued by the town. So to be on the lookout for this moped, and if I do see it, to conduct a traffic.
After the stop, officer, what happened next?
After the stop, I informed the operator that she needs to bring the moped back to the owner to try to moped.
And during your interaction with the operator, what information did you ascertain?
Upon stopping the operator, Mrs. Andrews, I inquired as to if she owned the moped or if she was a renter. She indicated to me that she had rented the moped, and then furthermore, she provided a copy of the slip with her name and information on it. She was kept in the seat of the vehicle.
And what information were you able to ascertain as to who the owner of that moped was? Island Mopeds? Yes?
Yes.
And prior to letting Miss Andrews leave the scene, what other actions, if any, did you take, officer?
During the interim of the traffic stop, Chief Moynihan contacted me via my cell phone and requested that the operator fill out a brief witness statement indicating that she would in fact rent that vehicle on that said time.
Okay. And were you able to run the registration of that vehicle, officer?
The Chief Moynihan ran that registration.
Okay. And how did the chief get the registration number of that vehicle?
When we conduct a traffic stop, we radio the dispatch, we inform them of your location, the description of the vehicle, and the registration.
And when you ran the registration of that moped, who did it come back to as the registered owner of the vehicle?
Island Moped.
And to your knowledge, what is Sir Island Mopeds?
It's a rental company, one of the rental companies that we have on the island.
And where are they located? On the island, is that fair?
On the island,
Okay,
yes,
all
sir.
right.
I would say Weldon Way.
All right, at that point, after you ascertained that the moped was registered to Island Mopeds, how did you proceed?
Well, the operator, I checked her license was active. She completed the witness statement form. I then requested that she take the vehicle back. She was fine. We had the traffic stop with the witness statement that she had filled out. And, turned it over.
It's all the questions that I have for this witness at this time.
It's only one. Again, what was the probable cause for the initial stop of the motor vehicle?
Upon receiving information from the chief that there was a vehicle that was not following ordinance for moped rentals, that was the reason for the stop.
And how did you know it was that particular moped that chief was referring to?
Due to the close proximity of time and the area that was indicated to me, and the fact that it was pink, that was a pretty good indicator to me that it was reasonable enough to believe that that would be the moped.
Did the chief tell you what the probable cause in his mind was for the stopping of the vehicle?
He just informed me that it was a violation of town ordinance and we needed to verify that the moped was not rented properly.
That's it. Well, basically, what was the chief's probable cause? Did he tell you what his probable cause was?
It was the fact that it did not have that old placard issued by the town.
And somehow he knew this was a rental moped.
That's correct.
Did he tell you how he knew that?
No, you did not.
Thank you, Mark.
I didn't ask for counsel any questions.
I do not, but if council has any questions.
Okay. Thank you, members of the
Thank you.
council. My next witness, who I understand is joining us remotely, is Chief Moynihan.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
What? Yes. Ah, yeah.
Well, you gotta turn it down.
Do we have visual of him or no?
Yeah, that training session.
No.
Yes. There's Moynihan behind.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
We could swear the witness, please.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Can you please state your name and address?
Sure. Matthew Moynihan, 26 Redberry Drive in South Kingston, Rhode Island.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Chief, could you please spell your last name?
Yes, Moynihan.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
Your answer to my first question may have been different a few days ago, but what is your occupation, sir?
I'm currently the chief of police in South Kingston, Rhode Island.
Okay, and how long have you been employed in that capacity?
I was sworn in on Monday morning.
Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you.
Prior to serving as chief in South Kingstown, where did you serve?
I was the chief of police in New Shoreham, Rhode Island.
Okay, and how long did you serve in that capacity?
Approximately 1 year.
And prior to that, Chief, were you in law enforcement?
I was.
And where was that?
I was employed by the Rhode Island State Police as a trooper.
And how long were you employed as a trooper?
Roughly 24 years, retiring as a captain.
Chief, on Saturday, May 21st, 2022, were you on duty that day?
I was.
And shortly after 2 p.m. on that day, do you recall receiving a report with respect to a moped?
I did.
And what was the nature of that report, Chief?
I received a phone call of a moped that was rented from my Island Moped at about approximately 2 o'clock. And was told that it got a description of the vehicle. It was a pink moped. It was operated by a white female. And it had a number 2 sticker affixed to the front of the moped. The information provided to me is that it did not have the issued New Shoreham tags that we had issued all the moped rental companies, and was leaving the area Weldon's Way.
And with respect to those black town issued tags, what significance are they, Chief?
By ordinance, it's a required tag issued to the moped, the licensed moped companies. It indicates and basically complies with the 34 mopeds that are allowed under the town ordinance to be rented. It also provides us the ability to identify or clearly identify rental mopeds, and assists us with reports of erratic operation or any unsafe operation that people can observe these numbers and call them in and provide us that information. It helps us and the officers on the island to identify specific mopeds.
And after you received the report that you described a moment ago, Chief, how did you act? What was your next action?
I called Officer Sakosha. I knew he was in the area of Weldon's Way, and I asked him to be on the lookout. I was told on the phone call that, again, the moped was leaving Weldon's Way and heading up High Street.
All right. And following your dispatch of Officer Sakosha, what was the result of the officer's investigation?
A short time later, I heard a radio transmission that he had stopped the moped on High Street. And I don't recall whether I had reached out to him or he had called me on the phone after that stop to update me.
Okay. And did there come a time, Chief, where you did in fact get an update as to what happened during that traffic stop?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And when that time came, what were you informed of?
Officer Scotia advised me that he stopped the moped. There was a white female as described. It's a pink moped with the number 2 affixed to the front, and that the moped did not have the required New Shoreham tags affixed.
At that time, Chief, were you aware to whom that moped belonged?
He advised that after speaking with the operator, he identified her through her license, and after speaking with her, she stated she had just rented the moped from Island Moped.
Okay. And upon learning that information, Chief, what action did you take next?
I asked him to obtain a witness statement, a written witness statement from the operator, and just obtain all the data regarding the stop.
And following Officer Sakosio clearing the scene, what was your next action, chief?
I placed a telephone call to Mike Finnemore, who was the manager of Island Moped, to advise him of what had occurred, and had a conversation with him about the vehicle stop.
And what is it that you told Mr. Finnemore during that conversation, chief?
I advised him that we had stopped one of his mopeds that he had just rented, and the moped did not have the required tags attached.
And what did Mr. Finnemore say in response to that information?
He acknowledged that the moped was rented, and that it was his mistake, that he knew that it had been rented and wasn't one of the ones that was registered with us as the 34 mopeds per the license. But he indicated that he hadn't exceeded the 34 total, and I was welcome to come down to his lot and inspect the remaining mopeds on the lot, and to see that he didn't have more than 34 rented.
Now, was there mention during that conversation of the lack of the black tag on that moped, chief?
Yes, I mean, when I speak as far as the tags, it was that this moped did not have the 3 tags that we typically attach to the mopeds when we register them with the town.
After your conversation, chief, with Mr. Finnemore, how did you proceed?
Again, he had offered that for me to come down and see the mopeds on his lot. I told him that really didn't make a difference, that the ordinance was clear that the tags needed to be attached to mopeds that were being rented. And he acknowledged that, yep, this was his mistake, and that he realized that this moped had been rented without the tags.
And ultimately, chief, there was a notice of hearing issued in this matter. Was that issued by you or somebody else, chief?
That was issued by the town.
Okay. And that notice of hearing, chief, is the reason we're here tonight. Fair?
Yes.
That's all I have at this time for the chief.
Thank you, Mark.
Good evening, Chief. My name is Mark Hagopian, and I represent Island Moped for you.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
How are you this evening?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Chief, I'm confused here. And I want you to try to clarify something for me. I've read your report numerous times, the incident report that you prepared regarding this incident. And I want to start with a point that I did not read in your report, and that is your statement that Mr. Finnemore told you that he knew it had been rented, meaning the moped that did not have the sticker. That's not in your report.
I'd have to review exactly the words in my report, but my
Do you have your
recollection,
report with you?
I do. If you give me a minute, I can
Sure.
review it.
Sure, please do.
So on the second page in the third paragraph, I wrote, Mr. Finnemore acknowledged that the moped in question was recently rented by Island Moped and was not authorized because the tags were not issued to it.
Okay. He acknowledged that the incident occurred, or did he tell you he knew the moped had been rented without a sticker? Which is it?
State that again, please.
Did he acknowledge after the fact, after the incident, that the moped in question was recently rented by Island Moped and was not authorized because tags were not issued? Or did he tell you that he knew the moped, meaning in advance of the rental, had been rented without a sticker?
Yeah, I believe the conversation in, in the report is that he acknowledged that the moped in question was recently rented and it wasn't authorized because the tags weren't issued to
All
it.
right, okay. I just wanted to make sure for the record, because we have a stenographer here, and this may very well end up in the Superior Court. I just want to make sure the record is clear that you're not saying, you're not alleging, because this is your report, that you're not alleging that Mr. Finnemore, as the owner of Island Moped, had prior knowledge that this moped was rented without a sticker. That's not what you're saying, correct?
No, when I called him
All right.
and stated to him that we had the vehicle stopped and it didn't have the stickers, he acknowledged that that moped had been rented and wasn't authorized because it didn't have stickers
All
attached.
right, okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, I just want to do a few little housekeeping things here. The date and time reported at the top of page 1 is
Incorrect.
5/21/2022.
And there's a typo in the narrative where it states May 22nd, and
Right.
that's
It's a-
incorrect and
that's
should
a
be
mis-
May 21st.
Okay, it's a mistake.
That's correct.
All right. Now, dropping down to the middle of the first page where there's a box and the letters INV are in the pre-printed form, and then below it, are the letters ON, OWN. Do you see that?
And this is on page 1?
Page 1, middle of the page.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. What is that INV? What is that? Stand for?
Involved? It would be involved,
Okay, and OWN?
owner?
Okay, and then you have a name, Finnemore Michael J. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know who the registered owner of this moped is or was at the time?
Yes, it's registered to Island Moped.
And not to Michael J. Finnemore?
It's not registered to Finnemore. It's registered to the business.
All
Correct.
right, so this was a mistake also? Yes or no?
Um, he is listed in here as an involved participant.
But he's not the owner of the vehicle.
Well, it's not so much saying the owner of the vehicle, it's owner. So, it doesn't say owner of the vehicle, just, I suppose that, we have Island Moped is listed as a subject and he's as the owner.
And he as the owner of what?
Yeah, so I suppose Island Moped is the owner.
Okay. The reason I ask is if you turn to page 2, the 5th paragraph underneath the citation to the town ordinance, and we'll come back to that. Where it begins, Mr. Finnemore stated, do you see that?
Yes,
All right. That he had not exceeded the number of vehicles rented per license and offered for Chief Moynihan to respond to Island Moped and inspect the number of authorized mopeds on his lot. And you informed him that this would not be needed, as the ordinance is clear and states that no vehicle shall be rented or leased unless one of the tags is fixed. Is that correct?
correct.
All right. So you did nothing to investigate whether or not there were other stickered mopeds on the lot at the time as suggested to you by Mr. Finnemore?
Yeah, I explained to him that that wasn't needed.
Well, that wasn't my question, Chief. My question was, you did nothing to investigate that. You did not respond to Island Moped's lot to determine whether or not there were other stickered mopeds on the lot at the time, correct?
That's correct, as I
right.
testified to.
Okay. And wouldn't this go to the state of mind of the person renting the moped as to whether or not it was a mistake?
It could have, but it didn't make a difference. There weren't tags attached to the moped, and that's
It
what I
didn't make a
explained.
difference in your mind as to whether there was a violation, correct?
Correct.
But it might make a difference to the town council if the town council determines there's a violation and decides to impose a penalty, wouldn't it? As to whether or not it was an intentional act or a mistake.
The moped was stopped because the moped did not have tags.
I understand that, chief, but
That's what we investigated, and that's what we're reporting and providing to the
I
council.
understand that, but you did not investigate the additional facts brought to your attention.
No, and I've already answered that question. I've told you that that wasn't what we were investigating. What we investigated was that the moped that was stopped in question was rented without tags attached.
Okay, so it did not matter to you what the potential penalty could be here.
Now, that's not for me to determine.
Right.
What I is to investigate that.
Correct, and that's my
moped that
whole
is
point, chief.
rented.
That's my whole point. And if you excuse me and let me ask the question. The question is, did you investigate facts brought to your attention that at the time of this incident, as Mr. Finnemore informed you, there were additional mopeds on his lot with stickers, yes or no?
No,
Now, dropping down to the next sentence, if you would, chief. At the time we caught Mr. Finnemore violating this ordinance, did Mr. Finnemore violate this ordinance? Or was it Island Moped?
but he's the manager of Island Moped.
Mr.
And-
Finnemore is a shareholder of the corporation,
Well,
right?
but Mr. Finnemore is the individual that I've been dealing with my time out there. Mr. Finnemore was the manager that was there when we registered all 34 mopeds on his lot.
But the violation alleged is against Island Moped Corporation, correct?
If that's correct, I don't know. If you have the records, I know who I been dealing with. I don't know.
You know
exactly.
who the registered owner of the vehicle is, correct? Island Moped.
Correct. Yep.
Right? Okay. And what you're asking for here is that Island Moped's license be suspended. And you're stating in an official document that Mr. Finnemore violated the ordinance. Mr. Finnemore didn't violate this ordinance. It's alleged that Island Moped did. So this is a mistake, isn't it?
No, I don't believe it is.
Okay. Now, going back to the last page. Rhode Island General Laws 31-19.3-6. Denial, suspension, or revocation of license. Do you know what that general law references?
Yes,
Cited in your report. What does that reference?
the statute for denial, suspension, revocation of licenses.
Okay, that's the statute that gives the town council the power to deny, suspend, or revoke a license, correct?
Correct.
Right. Now, dropping down to number 3. Violations, I'm sorry, let's start with the first sentence. The license provided for pursuant to this chapter may be denied, suspended, which is what you're asking for here, or revoked on any of the following grounds. And there are 3 grounds, right? You with me?
Yes.
Okay. So ground number 3 is violation of any provisions of this chapter or of the provisions of any ordinance established by the town, enacted pursuant to the provisions of this chapter. You see that?
Yes.
Now, in 2021, you personally, Chief of Police, changed the policy for identifying rental mopeds in the town of New Shoreham, correct?
Yes.
All right. previously for 30 some odd years, medallions were issued, correct?
Yes,
Little round metallic medallions.
that's my understanding, correct.
Okay, all right. So you changed the policy and then you instituted new procedures for the issuance of these stickers, correct?
The tags, yes,
Stickers. The stickers are adhesive backed, are they not?
yes,
Okay, and they are affixed to the moped
yes.
and they're permanent.
They're stickers. I wouldn't say they're permanent.
Okay, they're not easily removed and transferred to another vehicle. And isn't that the intent of the sticker?
I'm sorry?
Isn't that the intent of the sticker? They're not
Correct.
easily transferable from one vehicle to another.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, tell me, when, after you became chief of police, did the town council, as referenced in this denial, suspension, or revocation statute, establish and enact this new sticker procedure? When did the town council do that?
They did not.
They did not. Now, there were a series of procedures that you instituted for the issuance and/or the replacement of these stickers, correct?
Correct.
All right. Where do I find those procedures in the town ordinances?
It doesn't speak on the procedures. The
right.
ordinance doesn't.
Okay, so I'm new in town. I get a brand new moped license and I go to the town hall and I want to know, so that I'm in compliance with the law, right? Where I can find the sticker ordinance and where I can find the procedures for the issuance of those stickers and where I can find the procedures for the replacement if I have a broken down moped or one that I need to repair or one that's in an accident. Where do I find those?
Sure, it's this specific procedures aren't there, but it is in the ordinance that spells right out that tags will be issued to identify the rental mopeds, and they'll be registered with the town of New Shore.
All right, now let me ask you another question. Okay, so now I'm another guy. I'm not the new guy in town. I've been here for 30 years. All right, I've been here for 40 years operating a moped business. And for 30 of those years, I'm issued medallions, right? And we all know how they work. They go on the back of a moped, they go on the license plate, the police can identify them, they can match them to a moped. They know if that moped is stopped and that medallion is not there, I'm in trouble, right?
Is that a question?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what the procedures were before. I know what the procedures were that I instituted based on the ordinance of the issuance of tags.
okay. But previously, I'm here for 40 years. I'm operating a moped business with these medallions for 30 years. I know, right, that if I rent that moped without that medallion, I'm in trouble. Isn't that a fair statement?
Again,
Or my business is.
I cannot answer for enforcement actions of when I wasn't there.
No, I'm
I
not
can tell
asking
you when
about.
I know.
enforcement.
Well,
not
you're
asking
asking me
about-
if he'd be in trouble. I don't know if he would.
I'm
'cause I
asking you a
don't know what
common
else-
sense question. Isn't the answer to that question the fact that I knew that moped must have a medallion attached to it, right? And if it didn't, I could be violated.
Yeah, I don't see anywhere in the ordinance that it talks about a medallion. It talks about tags.
Tags.
Right.
Okay. So you interpreted tags to mean what was convenient for the police department.
And for the town of New Shore, correct.
Okay, and it was helpful for people in the community to do community policing and identify mopeds that are on dirt roads or driving crazy, or it looks like the operator's intoxicated, et cetera, right?
Correct.
All right. Now, don't you think, Chief, that the people that operate these businesses that are subject to these laws ought to have a say in that conversation?
As far as procedures on the tags,
Yes.
I don't see in the ordinance where it talks about that.
You and I are in total agreement on that. But isn't that what the law is supposed to do, Chief? It's supposed to give people notice with definitiveness as to how they must conform their behavior to a state statute or a town ordinance or a regulation so that they can be compliant with the law.
Well, procedurally, I mean, they know from the ordinance that each licensee will be issued identification tags. For numerous years, those identification tags were in the form of medallions. And there's a decision that's made to change that now, and the identification tags are now in a different form. The ordinance doesn't speak to that. It says that they're required to have identification tags that are
Right.
issued by the town
Exactly.
and registered through the town.
And it doesn't say stickers, correct? The ordinance does not say stickers.
It says tag.
It says tag. All right. Now, put yourself in the businessman's shoe. Had they known in advance, right, that there was a proposal to change the rules of the game, if you will, all right, in the ninth inning, okay, and that stickers are going to be required now instead of medallions, right? Shouldn't they have a say in that process? Isn't that due process?
The ordinance, I think, speaks to tags and the issuance of
All right.
tags.
Chief,
I'll
hang on one
withdraw
second.
it. I'll withdraw it. I'll withdraw it. I'll withdraw it. I made my point.
But just for the record, I just want to object. The question called for a legal conclusion. It's inappropriate for the chief to answer that.
And I'm asking the chief law enforcement officer, former chief law enforcement officer of the town of New Shoreham, that question, but I'll withdraw it. That's all I have. Thanks, chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Chief.
Very
Nick.
brief question. At this juncture, does any member of the town council have any questions?
I do not.
Chief, very briefly, you mentioned tags are authorized to be issued under the ordinance, correct?
Correct.
Are medallions tags?
I suppose they could be.
Are the black oval shaped, suppose we'll call them items that you issued to licensees tags?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Chief, I do have a follow-up question based upon that. And I don't know how we're going to do this, but I'd like to show you somehow a photograph of the license plate taken of moped number 2. Is there somewhere? Do you have a copy of my letter to the town council, Chief? Dated June 24th.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you away from the
I'm
microphone.
Chief, do you have a copy of a letter from me on my firm letterhead, Hagopian and Hagopian Law LLC, dated June 24th?
I do not.
Oh, all right. Okay, the town clerk is going to try to screen share that with you, Chief.
Okay.
Maybe we can take a break.
Please do, yeah.
Chief, are you there?
Yes,
Okay. I think the plan here, Chief, is to take a short recess. And if you don't mind, I really only have a couple more questions to follow up on Mr. Solitro's last question to you. And we want to share with you a photograph of the plate of this moped, and that's what we're trying to accomplish here.
okay.
So I think that the town.
I mean, if possible, if you want to just put it up in front of the camera, I'd probably be able to view it from there.
Okay. I didn't realize you were looking at the back of my head. Chief, you see this?
I'm sorry, no, I don't. If you. The camera's positioned right at the podium.
Chief,
I think if you put the document on the podium, I'll be able to see it from there.
all right. Do you see this, Chief?
If you just step, so the camera's from the back, Mr. Gopian, so if you just put it on the podium, there you go, exactly.
Gotcha. All right.
That's it. Perfect.
All right. So you see, you see the moped,
I do.
all right, and do you see which end of the moped we're looking at?
This is the rear of the moped.
Okay, and there's a Rhode Island Division of Motor Vehicles registration tag or plate,
Registration plate, correct.
and tag and plate sometimes are used interchangeably, are they not?
Yes,
All right. Now, the number of that tag is 56530, correct?
correct.
And there's a number 2 next to, between RI and the registration sticker. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, okay.
Yes, yep, I
I'm
can see
sorry.
that.
There you go.
I see that.
All right, okay. Do you, if I represent to you that this is a true and accurate photograph of number 2 moped, Island moped involved in this incident, do you have any reason to question that?
I do not.
All right. Now, Chief, in the upper right-hand corner of the plate, there is a medallion, correct?
Yes,
All right. And that there's a number on the medallion. I don't know if you can see it, but it's 035, and I'll show it to the council, legal counsel for the council.
So stipulated.
Okay, they're going to stipulate that medallion has a number 035.
Yeah.
This is the town issued medallion that was used to identify this moped prior to the implementation of your 2021 sticker policy.
okay,
All right. So at the time of this incident, this moped had a town issued tag. Did it not? Because you've testified that tags and stickers are the same thing.
yes.
Okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Nick, thank you, Mark. Nick?
Just one question, Chief. Chief, at the time of this incident, were the medallion tags still in use by the town?
No,
It's fair to say those black tags that have been described this evening are the ones in use.
correct. That's correct.
If you know, and I'm not sure if you do, was Island Moped and or its representatives aware that the black tags were the ones in use by the town at the time of this incident?
Absolutely. In
And how
fact,
were they, and how were they aware of that, chief?
based on when the tags were issued to Island Moped, and even earlier in the day, I had a conversation with Marty Milner about renting mopeds that didn't have the black tags attached to it, and was told that under no circumstances would that happen, and said that if there was a moped that was out there without the black tags, it was most likely an older moped that they had sold and was no longer owned or used by them.
Who is this Mr. Milner?
He's one of the workers at Island Mopeds.
And so the anecdote you just told us, chief, was the day of the incident. Was that prior to or after the incident?
That was prior to, it was the morning of.
And prior to the date of the incident, chief, to your knowledge, did Island Moped have noticed that the black tags were the effective ones?
Absolutely.
And how is that, chief?
From when we first instituted the black tags and registered all the mopeds, they assisted us in attaching the tags, ensuring that the registration numbers, the VIN numbers were coordinated with each tag that we issued. When a moped was placed out of service, I would be contacted and we would issue a temporary tag. It was very clear that every moped that was rented was required to have the black tags that we had issued.
And I understand in your opinion, chief, that it was very clear, but specifically, do you have knowledge of an incident or incidents in which a representative of Island Rental, such as Mr. Finnemore or Mr. Milner, were made aware of that prior to this incident, other than the date of, sir?
Yeah, they both were. I mean, we can go back to the year before when the tags were issued and we attached them. They were both present on a few occasions when we were attaching the tags to the mopeds. And then leading up to the incident, even, prior to the season, I had a conversation with all the rental moped companies to ensure that, ask them, do you need any new tags? Do you have any new mopeds that you're now want to register with the town if they were going to replace, say, mopeds in their fleet, and they wanted to exchange one of the mopeds maybe that we had registered last year with the town with a newer moped, and had the conversation and the understanding that they all knew that the same procedures were going to be in place for this summer season as well.
And chief, just for clarification, you've mentioned tags multiple times. When you speak of tags in your last few answers, or for the purpose of my most recent examination of you, we're speaking of the black oval tags that you caused to be issued to Island Moped, as well as other moped companies, correct?
That's correct.
And it's your testimony that Island Moped had actual knowledge from yourself and representatives of your department that these black tags were the tags in effect on the date of the incident, correct?
That's correct.
That's all I have.
But chief, there was no, I want to make it clear on the record, there was no amendment to the ordinance, the tag ordinance in 2021 to implement this new sticker policy or these procedures, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Now, since we've gotten into this issue of stickers versus tags and replacing stickers with non-stickered mopeds, et cetera, was there a time in 2021 where Mr. Finnemore had very detailed conversations with you regarding the practical operational problems for both the businesses and the police departments associated with these semi-permanent stickers as opposed to the old medallions?
Yes, we did have conversations.
All right. And was there an informal agreement reached, a workaround to try to make these stickers work with Mr. Finnemore's company, Island Moped?
I don't understand your question.
Did you reach an agreement with Mr. Finnemore's company to work around these operational issues associated with the stickers?
I don't understand how you're referring to an agreement. He had some concerns regarding if a registered moped was placed out of service, mechanical issues. And through the ordinance, he had the right through his license to rent out 34 mopeds.
At
And
any given time, correct, chief?
correct.
At 8 o'clock in the morning, at 12 o'clock in the afternoon,
Well,
and
not
at
at
7
eight,
o'clock at night, or
not
9
at 8
o'clock
o'clock in the
or
morning.
9
but
o'clock in the morning. Let me
It'd be-
rephrase that.
Correct.
At 9 in the
During
morning,
times that the
12
ordinance
noon,
states that.
7 o'clock, on any given day, at any given time, he's allowed to have a total of 34 on the road.
Correct.
All right. Didn't you have a very specific discussion with Mr. Finnemore that this was going to become problematic for both the police and the businesses during especially the high season, the high tourist season on Block Island?
Never was it a discussion that it was going to be a problematic. It was, we had a plan and the procedures in place that if a moped was to be placed out of order, we would be able to have another replacement moped be registered and have a temporary tag attached.
A temporary tag. Did you ever
Correct.
make an agreement with Mr. Finnemore to allow an unstickered moped to go out when a stickered moped was down, as long as an officer came and verified?
No,
That
Never.
never happened?
there was always a sticker attached to a moped that was rented out.
That never happened.
Never happened.
So I'm going to read you something from my letter, chief. And I, when I write a letter to a town council, I take my job pretty seriously, as you do. I make sure I investigate the facts. And after investigating the facts in this matter, this is what I learned. First of all, I had a personal conversation with legal counsel for the town of New Shoreham when this sticker policy was first instituted. I told him that Mr. Finnemore objected to the new sticker policy. Would you agree that that's a fact? That he objected?
Correct, yes.
All right. And he had a conversation with you that there were going to be problems with this policy, didn't he? Early on,
In his opinion, yes.
in his opinion. Okay. And he told you that in his opinion, it was going to be a problem, not just for the businesses, but for the police.
Correct.
All right. Because you're busy guys and women. You got 4th of July, some guy blowing his face off with fireworks over in New Harbor. You've got a fight down at Yellow Kittens. You've got an accident up on the north end. It would seem to me that the last priority on the list of the police department is to monitor the stickering of mopeds when a moped is down for repair. Wouldn't you say that's a true statement?
Yeah, we didn't run into any situation where a replacement moped could not be registered with us with a temporary tag. In fact, our contingency plan when that happened worked very well. It worked on, I can't give you specifics on how many times with all the companies, but there were several occasions that I would get a phone call that they were having mechanical issues, and we immediately responded down. And at no time, to my knowledge, was any company deprived of the ability to rent 34 mopeds at a time.
So if Mr. Finnemore testifies to the contrary, he's not telling the truth.
I didn't say that. I said to my knowledge. If
Your
he
knowledge.
testifies for
All right.
that.
So it could have happened.
It would not happen. Correct.
Could have happened.
Right. As I said, to my knowledge.
All right. But you never made an agreement with Mr. Finnemore that in situations where everybody's busy, that a non-stickered moped could replace a stickered moped that's being taken out of the fleet for repair, as long as an officer visited the shop to verify the non-stickered moped being down. And in certain situations, Mr. Finnemore would actually take a photograph of the moped that was stickered and send it to you. That never happened?
It's stickered. We would place a temporary sticker on the replacement moped.
No,
He-
no, that wasn't my question. Was there ever a situation where you allowed it as part of this, workaround, a non-stickered moped to leave Island Moped's shop to replace a stickered moped that was down for repairs if Mr. Finnemore went through the process of texting you a photograph, and then you having an officer coming down to verify the facts?
That never happened. Never
Never
happened.
happened.
Anytime that I would get a call that one was out of order, a temporary, and that's what we had set up. And that happened on numerous occasions, as I said, or several occasions that happened. That they were yellow temporary tags that were attached to the replacement moped.
And those were only issued when a replacement moped went down?
Correct. And then
You
the
never
moped
issued
that was
those?
out of order, the moped that was out of order, they would send a photo, he would text that, but the moped that replaced it always had attached temporary tags.
Always.
Yeah,
And
I
it-
cannot recall of an incident, ever. As I said, we were very responsive in any time that situation occurred, and I can't recall of any instance that I ever authorized or that any moped company was ever deprived the ability to rent 34 mopeds.
Did you ever refuse a request by Island Moped to swap a non-stickered moped for a stickered moped, where Island Moped made a determination that it was safer and more reasonable to rent a larger moped to a 6-foot tall, 300-pound guy, or a smaller moped to a 100-pound person who was 5 feet 2 inches? Did you ever deprive
I don't-
Island Moped of that situation, of that
So I,
ability to use their discretion as to which mopeds they would rent and which mopeds they would not rent?
yes.
You did.
I had several conversations with Mr. Finnemore that he wanted the ability to swap out based on potential renters and their size. And I explained to him several times is that the ordinance allowed that 34 mopeds be registered with the town through the tags, and that the swapping out wasn't provided within the ordinance to allow that to happen. It had that the license is that they register 34 with the town. I was more than willing to try to work with him in occasions, but this was a practice done just by Island Moped, where he has different size mopeds based on the clientele that were there.
All right, so you made the denial, but it's your understanding that the ordinance limits each moped licensee to a fleet, a total aggregate of 34 mopeds?
To be registered with the town. The ordinance doesn't speak on how many mopeds that they want to purchase.
So they
and
could register 50.
register meaning with the town or register with the Registry of Motor Vehicles?
Well, the Registry of Motor Vehicle registers motor vehicles in the state of Rhode Island. There is no other registry of motor vehicles, first of all, you know that. The applicants, the licensees submit with their applications fleet descriptions.
Of
Correct.
34 mopeds, correct. Of
It could be
34
50 mopeds, correct? As long as that applicant doesn't rent more than 34 at any given time, they're in compliance with the law.
I'd have to review the ordinance, but I believe the ordinance says that the town is licensing them to lease or rent 34 mopeds. And those 34 mopeds need to be registered with the town and,
Okay. All right.
and meet the tags that are affixed to them.
All right, now we're getting down to it. All right, So I start the season on day one in May with 34 mopeds. And those are the mopeds that I placed on an appendix or an exhibit to my application in December or November.
Correct.
And I'm stuck with those 34 mopeds in July, and I'm stuck with those same 34 mopeds in August, and I'm stuck with those same 34 mopeds in October.
No,
Is
you're
that what
not.
you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. That's what you said. What I said,
Oh.
is we worked with the moped owners,
Okay.
and when a moped was out of service, we would ensure that they had the ability to rent or lease 34 mopeds.
What you said was that those mopeds had to be registered with the town.
34 mopeds needed to be registered with the town.
Okay.
Correct.
And your understanding is that the licensees have no discretion at any time during the season to make a decision, even for safety reasons, to swap out what you describe as a town registered moped for a non-town registered moped.
Correct.
All right.
I don't have any questions for the chief.
Thank you, Chief. You're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was my last witness, members of the council. The town rests its judgment.
Thank you, Nick.
We
I-
take,
Sure. I have one question for either you or Mike. Marty's name's come up. How long has Marty worked for Island Mopeds? Or how many?
2 years.
2 years.
This is the second year.
Thank you. 5 minutes? 5 minutes is good? All right. We'll take a 5-minute break. Yeah,
We're ready.
thank you.
At this time, Island Moped calls Mike Finnemore for rebuttal. Mr. Finnemore, can you just step over there and then look at the stenographer and.
Mike Benamor, 213 Water Street, Lucknow.
Social distance, just right there. You go. All right. Mr. Finnemore, you heard the chief's testimony here tonight.
Yes.
And you heard the discussion of the quote unquote workaround that was agreed to between he and you in 2021. Did you recall that testimony? Okay. All right. And you heard the chief state rather emphatically that at no time after that workaround was agreed to, did he allow a non-stickered moped to be rented from your facility? You recall that?
Yeah.
All right. Is that true?
No, it's incorrect.
All right. Tell us why it's incorrect and what the circumstances were when those situations happened.
It's mostly happened when I have large mopeds and small. I try and have the person that's bigger on a bigger moped. And the smaller person on a smaller moped.
Why?
It's safe.
Why?
It's safer.
Okay.
And I would call the chief up. Sometimes allowed, sometimes not. You know, as he was, I would take a picture of it, text him sometimes, and tell him, and he would tell me, I'm gonna have an officer come down and verify that you have the stickered moped on the lot, replacing the non-stickered moped.
In those circumstances where you were in the chief's good graces and he allowed the non-stickered moped to leave the lot, was he aware that the moped was not stickered?
Yes, I mean, that's the reason why I did it.
All right.
That's why I called him up, picture of the one.
And then a police officer would come to verify what?
Sometimes they would come by and verify that the stickered moped replace the non-sticker.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mark.
Mhm.
Nick?
Very brief.
Whoops.
Good evening, Mr. Finnemore. Mr. Finnemore, the stickers that were effective in 2022, to your knowledge, sure, the stickers that were effective in 2022 were the black stickers, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you were made aware of that by representatives of the police department, I trust?
22.
22, correct. When were you made aware that the black stickers were effective? Okay. Did you have an understanding that that continued into 2022?
I just have a continuing objection. This is way outside the scope.
And for the record, I would state that in counsel's directive, this witness, there were questions about stickered versus non-stickered mopeds. My questions are relating directly to those stickers.
My questions related directly to instances in which the chief agreed to allow a non-stickered moped to leave the premises, and that was it.
20,
It's a very narrow scope of the rebuttal.
and so, Mr. Finnemore, you were made aware in 2021 that the black tags were the tags that were effective, correct?
Correct.
And you were made aware of that by members of the police department, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. On the date in question, Mr. Finnemore, was the pink moped that we've heard testimony about here this evening rented from Island Moped without a black sticker?
I was made aware of that when they called me up.
They being the police department?
The officer first called me and asked me, you rented the pink moped number 2? I said, yes. He says, I can't find the stickers. And I said, whether it's a round, oval, look around. They gotta be there on each side, in the front, that's where he put them. So I can't find them. Then I said, well, I made a mistake, I rented that one, can you have the person drive it back?
So in fairness, that pink moped was owned by Island Rentals and rented out, thank you, Island Moped and rented out that day without that black tag. Fair?
They made me aware of it, yes.
That's all I have. Unless there's a follow-up.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Just council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry.
No, we're,
Potentially asking a question.
the council does not have any questions at this time. Do you have any, would you like some closing arguments? Mark? I would allow.
Thank you. You know, it's pretty clear to me that what happened here, and even the chief has testified to this, you know, somewhat, I think reluctantly, but testified to it, is that this was a mistake. This was unintentional, right? Notwithstanding that fact, he's here asking you to suspend this licensee's license. And I think that if you were to do that, based upon this record, it'd be an extraordinary violation of the due process rights of the licensee. You know, due process is pretty simple, and that is, as I discussed with the chief, and that is, you should know what the rules are, right? The rules have to be codified in a statute, in an ordinance, in a regulation, so that you can conform your behavior, your conduct, the conduct of your business to the rules. That didn't happen here. Now, had things gone the way they should have constitutionally, right? Because this is a license, it's a property interest. The chief is asking you to essentially do a taking of it. Either a suspension, however long that is, that's a taking, right? All right. It requires due process, right? There have to be rules. The chief doesn't get to make the rules. That's your job. The chief, I have a lot of respect for the chief. My brother is a retired state trooper. I'm the last guy on the planet anyone's ever going to accuse of being anti-cop. With that said, the chief doesn't make the rules. The chief only enforces the rules. And as I said, alluded to in my cross-examination, the businesses get a voice in that under due process. What should have happened in 2021 is that there should have been, the chief should have come to the council and said, I don't like these medallions. They don't work for me. They don't work for the community. I'm not saying that community policing is a bad thing. It's a good thing. We had a trial in the Superior Court on the Finnemore 1 case, where we talked all about community policing on Block Island. It's a good thing. But everybody gets a say, right? So what should have happened is there should have been, the chief should have come to the council and said, don't like these medallions. They don't work for me. Stickers would be much better. I'll get everybody involved. People who live on dirt roads will be able to say with somewhat definitive, facts, right? That's a rental moped. That doesn't belong here. I can't see that little medallion. Fine. Report it to the police. The police have probable cause. They come out and they find that moped where that person's willing to give a statement. Fine. Okay, charge the operator. But here, what we're doing is we have a process that's failed, right? Because that process was available to the chief. He just didn't avail it himself of it. He didn't come to the council. You didn't have an amendment instituted or submitted to the council. Drafted, submitted by your legal counsel, whomever, one of the counselors, right? You live here. There would have been notice, publication in a newspaper. There would have been a hearing. And the discussion that Mike Finnemore had with the chief in the spring of last year, which I had to facilitate through your insurance counsel in Providence, of all places, okay? That conversation should have been here in these four walls. And that conversation should have involved Mr. Finnemore. And he should have had the opportunity to come before you as his representative. You represent him too. May not like it, but you represent him. And he'd have been able to say exactly what he told the chief. And it's in my letter. This is going to be a problem for you guys on July 4th. I don't know that you've really thought this all the way through. This is going to be difficult. You're not going to want to, as I said, when you've got somebody seriously injured over in New Harbor because of a firework accident, you got to fight at the Yellow Kittens. You have an accident down on Corneck Road. You have a heart attack down at the Southeast Light, all at the same time. You think that it's high on the list of the priorities of the police department to come switch out a tag on a moped so that they can have the full benefit and complement of their license, which is to rent 34 mopeds at any given time? No. Let's be real. The police have more serious business to attend to than swapping out stickers on a moped, okay? And I suggest to you that that workaround was agreed to. And that workaround didn't work. Because why? The police got busy doing their jobs, right? So here we are. I don't know what else to say, to suggest to you, other than the fact that this certainly doesn't warrant a suspension of any kind. And honestly, the council needs to take a hard look at the ordinance now that there's been a change of command here, right? And those procedures should be vetted, right? And determine what works for everybody, including your own police department, and give the moped operators a voice in that conversation because due process requires it. Now, I'm just gonna, I don't like telling governmental bodies that you can't do that, right? But I have to. And what I'm telling you is that when I read the Moped Enabling Act, General Laws 31-9.3-6 on suspension of licenses, you can only do it if there's been a violation of this chapter, meaning the general law, or the provisions of any ordinance established by the town council and acted pursuant to the provisions of this chapter. And I submit to you, that's not what happened here. What happened here is brand new, well-meaning chief of police established and essentially enacted unwritten, uncodified procedures without due process, without notice, without public comment, debate, and a vote by you, he changed the law. This unfortunate incident happened. And just one more thing I want to say and add to this. Mike Fenimore and his businesses have been the holder of four liquor licenses, 8 hotel licenses, food licenses for 40 years. Never had a violation. He tries to conform his behavior and his conduct to the law. And when the law becomes a challenge, he does what he did in the spring of last year. He picks up, he either just goes to the person, right? That's the way it ought to be. Or in this case, he had to pick up the phone and call me because we were in a rather contentious relationship at the time, the town and all of the moped businesses, including Island Moped. I called your insurance counsel. I said, Chief and Mike have spoken. Everything's all set. They've worked it out, but it didn't work. And I think that exposes the problem here, and that is, it's the ordinance. You need to go back, you need to revisit it. I think to suspend and to find a violation. I don't think there's a violation. I don't think that your very able counsel can prove there was a violation. I don't think the evidence proves there was a violation. Because stickers and the sticker procedures weren't the law. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mark. Nick?
Members of the council, the matter before the council this evening is, despite multiple hours of testimony, believe it or not, actually very straightforward. Was this Island moped rented without the town issued tag that was the only valid tag at the time? The answer to that very simply is yes, it was. In fact, to his credit, it would appear that Mr. Fenimore admitted that to the police chief when this happened, and candidly admitted it tonight. I think on that basis alone, the town has met its burden of proof, and the council should find that a violation did in fact occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Council, we have a choice of things to do here this evening. We could continue the hearing to another date, or we could make a decision on the findings of fact that we've heard before us. Should we decide to do that, we will have to render a decision and produce those findings of fact. I personally feel as though I would like to see a transcript of the proceedings before me this evening before making a decision on this. Therefore, I will make a motion to continue this hearing to July 20th at 7 p.m. for findings of fact and decision. Seconded by Keith. Is there any discussion? July 20th would be the night of our regular meeting. Of our next meeting.
It is. Sorry, Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion, council? All those in favor, Keith? Martha?
Aye.
I'm in favor. Sven?
Aye.
And Mark. The motion will carry 5-0, and we will take this up at our January. I'd love to have you out here in January, Mark.
Nelly, will you be able to get the transcript and send it to us?
Sorry? You need me to say anything? The town council of the town of New Shaw will be ordering a transcript of these proceedings.
Yes, we only need one.
And we only need one. Thank you. Okay. A week before the 20th? I guess in 2 weeks?
Sure. Myself or James Callahan.
Thank you.
I thank you all for coming tonight. I thank you for presenting the evidence and you're welcome. Oh, Beth, I don't think it'll be the last time. Thank you.
I do. I'm optimistic.
I might
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn,
Second.
seconded by Sven. All those in favor, Keith, Martha, I am in favor, Mark, and Sven. Motion carries. Thank you. We gotta find you a car, a nice car.